Astrophysicist Hugo Ross sat down on a Glenn Beck podcast and told everyone as to why. Just watch.
Reading that Gideon Bible at age 17. And that was also the same time that physicists in South Africa and Britain were developing the first of the space-time theorems, which basically prove that space and time have a beginning. Space and time are created. And what I notice about the Bible is that it stood alone in making the claim that space and time are created entities. What I saw in the Eastern religions, space and time are eternal, and God or gods create within space and time that always exists. So seeing that the Bible said something different that was being affirmed by the space-time theorems, said maybe this book really is from the one who created the universe.
So can you take me through Genesis and the creation and show me the science?
Well, I was taught this scientific method in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. We got it all 12 years. And so when I picked up this book, the Bible, and looked at the first page, Genesis 1, I said, this perfectly follows the scientific method. It took me 9 years to discover why it so perfectly followed the scientific method. Right. That's where it comes from. It comes from the creation texts in the Bible and Reformation theology. But I looked at, Genesis 1, 2. The Spirit of God is hovering over the surface of the waters of planet Earth. And it gives you 4 initial conditions. It's dark everywhere on the surface, the water is everywhere, and the planet, Earth, is unfit for life and empty of life. Well, steps 1 and 2 of the scientific method are, do not interpret until you establish the frame of reference. The point of view is the surface of Earth's waters. And don't interpret to also establish the starting conditions. What's all laid out in Genesis 1, 2. And I keep running into scientists who say Genesis teaches scientific nonsense. And I say, well, Galileo said the biggest mistake you can make in Bible interpretation is to get the wrong point of view. And when they say it's scientific nonsense, they think God is above the earth, looking down on the earth and telling us what he did. Instead, it's God on the surface of the earth, looking up at the clouds and telling us what he did. Makes a huge difference in how you interpret the 6 days of creation. Okay. So, but yeah, nobody was helping me on this. I just saw this in the text and said, okay.
At 18?
17.
17.
Yeah. So I said, okay, creation day 1, let there be light. And I said, well, that's when the atmosphere goes from opaque to translucent. I knew enough about astronomy to realize Earth had to begin with an atmosphere 200 times thicker than it has today. An atmosphere that thick will not let any visible light through. The sun and stars existed, but there was no light on the surface of the waters of planet Earth. Day 1 is when the atmosphere was thinned out sufficiently that light could come through. And it says the Spirit of God was brooding over the surface of the waters. That implies the origin of life. So I saw life being originated at the beginning of creation day 1. And then you go into creation day 2, water above and water below. I really didn't have an idea what that meant, but when I got to the book of Job, it devotes 1.5 chapters to creation day 2 and basically describes it as God cycling water in the atmosphere above to the streams and lakes and oceans below and then back again.
Oh my gosh.
And actually describes 6 distinct forms of precipitation in Job 37 and 38. It mentions, for example, that there will be dew and mist and rain, and then snow and frost and hail. And again, I had enough science under my belt to realize that's the only way you can have billions of people living on the surface of the earth. Because the Earth's water cycle is designed to ensure, no matter where you are, there's both frozen forms of precipitation and liquid forms, so we can have rivers and streams that flow all years round, and we have abundant food that can be grown everywhere. You need all 6 to make that possible. Then you get into creation day 3, and this is when land masses show up for the first time, when God transforms the earth from a water world to one with continents and oceans. And at 19, I got to take a course on plate tectonics. As far as I know, it was the first course in the world that was taught on plate tectonics at a university. That's because 2 of the 3 physicists who launched the discipline were at the University of British Columbia. Somehow I managed to get into that class as an undergraduate, and that's when they said, oh, the continents haven't always been here. It's plate tectonics that builds up the continents. And they thought it was a linear relationship from 0 to where it is today. Today we know that it takes deep oxygen cycle events to really accelerate the growth of the continental land masses. And so in 2018, they basically showed, for about the first billion years, you got nothing but water, and then plate tectonics kicks in. But at the first great oxygenation event 2.5 billion years ago, about 90% of the continental landmass forms.
Wow.
And so basically it shows that the more we learn about the past history of the Earth, the tighter and tighter fit we get with what the Bible taught about these land masses thousands of years ago. And then it talks about vegetation on the land masses. And I've debated the executive director of the Skeptic Society 4 times in university campuses. He always jumped on Genesis no matter what we were talking about, and because he saw that as the Achilles heel of the Christian faith. So he'd always say, well, the fossil record shows us we got animals before we got vegetation on the continents. I said, well, obviously, animals have skeletons and shells. That's going to be easily preserved. That's not the case for vegetation. It's going to decay. Right. But what happened in 2009 and 2011, 2 papers were published in Nature saying we now have the isotope evidence, and in 2011, the fossil evidence that vegetation was abundant on the continental land masses 600 million years before the first animals show up. So again, it shows, hey, as we learn more, it basically gives you a tighter and tighter fit.
What would they have eaten if there was no vegetation, if there was no...
Well, I think Michael Shermer was saying, there would have been vegetation in the oceans, but the biblical text says vegetation on the land masses. He said, we have no fossil evidence of that. Well, we didn't during my first debate, but we do now. We do have that evidence. And then Creation Day 4 is when creatures on the surface of the earth for the first time can see the sun, moon, and stars. And we now know the second great oxygenation event turned Earth's atmosphere from a dense haze to transparent. It's oxygen that determines how transparent the atmosphere is. And so an experiment was done where they took the atmosphere of the Earth, started with less than 1% oxygen and pushed it up. Well, the second great oxygenation event, the oxygen level suddenly goes from 2% to 8% for the first time in Earth's history. That's enough to make the atmosphere transparent.
Unbelievable.
That's exactly the same time that the first animals appear. Animals can't function if they don't know where the sun, moon, and stars are in the sky. They need a transparent sky. But what we see in the fossil record, the very moment oxygen hit that minimum level for animals suddenly appear. You go from nothing but microbial life to animals as big as 2 meters across. And then in Creation Day 5, you also have God creating the sea mammals and the birds. Only the second time it uses the word create. The word create in Hebrew, bara, is for something brand new at God's hand. And what was brand new was animals that are not just physical, but soulish, in that they have mind, will, and emotions, a capacity to form relationships with one another, their offspring. They sacrifice for the offspring. They also are endowed with a capacity to form relationships with a higher species, namely us human beings, and to serve and please us. Then you get into Creation Day 6. It doesn't talk about the first land mammals. It talks about the 3 categories of land mammals that are essential for launching human civilization. And Job 38 and 39 goes into that in great detail. And it's the short-legged land mammals, the rodents that we need for the clothing that humans were critically dependent upon when they first appeared. Because we humans, unlike the Neanderthals, are not adapted for a cold climate. We're fine in a warm climate, but not a cold climate. The rodents enabled us to go into cold climate zones. Then 2 different kinds of long-legged land mammals, those that are easy to tame, the herbivores we use for agriculture, those that are difficult to tame, the carnivores that we use for household companions. And last of all, God creates human beings, and only the third time does it use the word create. Because what's brand new about us, we're not just physical and soulish, we're spiritual. As these birds and mammals were designed to relate to a higher species, we are designed to relate to a higher being, the one who did everything.
Guys, what on earth can you tell me? In fact, I'll let all the atheists go ahead and debate, okay? In the comment section, it's go, well, it can't be because what? It baffles me how we can see everything in our world today. Not back then, no, today. Every single thing in our world today has a creation, meaning somebody created it. It was an idea. Somebody said, you know what, I'm sick and tired of sitting on the floor all day. Maybe there's something, maybe, what should I call it? A chair, a bear, a chair. Okay, chair. Well, that's a funny name. Chair. Okay, design the chair. In their head first, and then it came out. Every single thing was designed or created. It's like a robot saying, I don't believe in a creator because I am AI, I self-evolved. It's like, yeah, but somebody had to plant the seed in there for you to self-evolve, Mr. ChatGPT. Look, I'm not going to do too much talking, okay? I want all the atheists and the Christians, let me know your thoughts in regards to this, but this was a masterclass. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, subscribers, for suggesting this video. Suggest all your other videos as well. And if you're serious, you want to make some holy gains, because you guys have been asking me, link is in the description down below. God bless you.